All right, good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Rocky Mountain NetSuite User Group meeting, our first one of 2021. Hopefully at some point this year we'll be able to be back in person, but we do plan on continuing to broadcast our meetings remotely. So those of you that are not in the Denver metro area here, I hope that you'll be able to continue to join us. My name is Corey Anderson. I'm the president of the Rocky Mountain NetSuite User Group, and welcome to our meeting. So this is our agenda for today. We'll have our welcome and general business, which is what we're doing right now. Then we'll hear from our meeting sponsor, Piango. And I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that right, but we'll find out in a little bit. And then after that is our main presentation today, Save Searches A to Z. That'll be presented by Gary Kangas from Bresatec. And then after that, we'll hear from Margie Cominos about our tips and tricks. And Margie is going to add on to the Save Search topic and talk about sublists and creating sublists in NetSuite and using Save Searches to leverage that awesome capability. And then after that, we'll have our open forum. During our open forum, you'll have the ability to ask questions, and as a group, we can help answer questions or maybe point you in the right direction. It's not a time for just the board members to answer your questions. Anybody can come in and put in their knowledge. That's the idea there, is that we as a group are here to help each other out. So we'll go ahead and dive on in here. Our membership, we are now at 1,194 members. Membership to our user group is free. You can register at rmnsug.org. And then there is a registration page. I forgot the URL. I should have put that up there, but it's pretty self-explanatory. When you register as a member, you'll make sure you get notification of our upcoming meetings and events. We do hold special events from time to time. As a member, you also get access to our LinkedIn forum, which we have as a closed group so that it doesn't get spammy, so that if you ask questions and you want answers from other members, you can do that there. As a member, you also get a $400 discount to SuiteWorld, and as of right now, SuiteWorld is planned for, I believe, October of this year, and I think that's probably realistic. I hope that, with the vaccines and everything that's happening, we should be able to plan on being at SuiteWorld this year. CPE credits. As a member, you are entitled to CPE credits, and I mean, honestly, you can sign up for the CPE credits even if you're not a member, but we really would prefer that you sign up as a member if you are going to be signing up for the CPE credits, and that way we can email you, like I said, email you in the future and things like that. We have not announced the CPE credit yet, the opening credit or the opening keyword. We'll do that at the beginning of Gary's presentation. Sorry, my slide is not advancing. Okay. Also, as a member, you have access to our LinkedIn user group. The purpose of our LinkedIn user group is to support fellow members with questions and answers. It also gives us an opportunity to follow up with questions and answers from the meeting that maybe we didn't get a chance to address during that time. We also use that to post our announcements. So when our presentations are available, the notes, the discounts to SuiteWorld, that type of thing will announce that they're available. So if you check in on the LinkedIn forum every once in a while, you can kind of get a pulse of any announcements or things that are going on with the user group. And then the LinkedIn forum also gives you an opportunity to post any job openings that you might have. And also, if you're looking for a job, you can post there as well. So where to find us? I'm going to check this chat message real quick. I don't think there's any background music playing. Does anybody else hear background music? I don't hear anything. Okay, I'll keep going. So where to find it? No, okay. So our website is rmnsug.org. That's Rocky Mountain NetSuite User Group.org. We also have a YouTube channel. You can search for RMNSUG, and then we have our LinkedIn forum, and that is the URL for the LinkedIn forum. On our website, we post all of our meetings. So we record all of the meetings and we post them. And so every meeting that we've done since, it's probably been 4 years now that we've been recording and posting these meetings. So if you find value in this meeting, you want to watch it again, you can always go back to our website, go to the post and rewatch it, or just rewatch certain parts. Or if there's somebody that you know that couldn't make today's meeting, you can always refer them back to our website and review those meetings and that information in the future. And thank you, Margie. We also post the PowerPoint slides from our presentations and any notes from the tips and tricks. So all of the information that we share, we post on our website, so you can always access it later on. So member announcements. For the sake of time today, I'm going to, if you have any announcements, you can feel free to post them in the chat window, and then you can also post them on our LinkedIn forum. And announcements might be a job opening that you have, or like I said, if you're looking for a job, anything like that, please feel free to post that in the chat window right now. And this is not an opportunity to necessarily advertise any services, but it's just as individual members of the group, job postings and looking for a job. I'd like to take just a minute to introduce the board. That's me in the upper left-hand corner. I am Corey Anderson. I work with Eide Bailly. I'm a NetSuite consultant. I lead our managed services team. And then we have Margie Cominos, sorry, Margie. She's our sponsorship and member chair. She is with PlantScan Corp. And then we have our communications chair, Mike Keckline with Vertafore. And then Peggy Eveleth, our speaker chair with RSM US. And then our treasurer, Dana Larson with Dana Larson Consulting. So just so you all know, we are all volunteers. We work for the user group because we love NetSuite. Because we love sharing information. When we're able to be in person, there's great networking capabilities and opportunities. And really that's why we're here, is because we just like being a part of the NetSuite ecosystem. Evaluations, so we do send an evaluations survey out. It'll be sent out today. Please take just a few moments to let us know how we're doing. We read and act on the feedback from those evaluations. And if you have any ideas for topics that you'd like to see in the future, we do take that into account and try and create content around those topics. If there's anything that you think we could do better, we definitely want to hear from you and improve what we're doing. So please take just a moment to fill those out when they come in. I'd like to talk just about meeting sponsorship for a minute. So membership to the user group is free. The cost of our meetings is supported by 2 levels of sponsorship. We have a Suite App and consulting sponsors. Suite App sponsors must be available through suiteapp.com, and our consulting sponsors must offer NetSuite consulting services and have certified NetSuite consultants on staff. The reason we have these 2 different types of sponsorships is to provide members insight into different suite apps that work with NetSuite and give you an idea of what is out there and help you maybe solve some business challenges. And then our consulting sponsors, we rotate through, and we just want you to know that there are a lot of opportunities out there to get help with NetSuite if you need help, and the sponsors of the user group are there to help you. You can sign up for either sponsorship type at rmnsug.org/sponsorship. And that website, or that page on the website, does give you more information about the sponsorship as far as fees and what it entails and all of the information there. So our upcoming meetings next, let's see, this year, March 2021, the theme is cash. And so with that theme, we're going to talk about bank recs, bank feeds, electronic bank payments, and more. We haven't nailed down all of the details of that topic yet, but we think it's going to be a fun one, and it'll kind of be a little bit of a potpourri of different topics all related to cash and the cash in your business and how NetSuite helps you with that. In May of this year, we're going to do SuiteTax, which is a new one. We haven't done that one before. SuiteTax is a new tax capability in NetSuite that all accounts will have at some point eventually. I believe. Actually, I know that all new accounts are coming with SuiteTax, and then accounts that exist before that should be able to upgrade at some point to have the SuiteTax capability. It wouldn't surprise me if NetSuite rolled it into a new release at some point as well. Since tax, we don't want to listen to somebody talk about tax for 2 hours, so we're combining that with an advanced PDF templates topic. So it's a kind of a 2-for-1 meeting. So SuiteTax and advanced PDF templates. And then in July, we're coming back to our accounting spotlight. And so we'll talk about all things related to accounting in NetSuite. I believe last time we did our accounting one, we talked about bank recs and stuff like that. So we're not going to do that again because we're going to be doing that in March. So we'll have some new content around our accounting spotlight in July. CPE credits. So there are 2 CPE credits for attending today's meeting. Certificates will be issued within 15 days after training. And if you have any problems with those getting or obtaining your CPE credits, please email info@rmnsug.org. The CPE credits are sponsored by Eide Bailly, and so you'll probably hear from me if you have a problem with your CPE credits. This is a slide that's required as we provide those CPE credits. So CPE and attendance credits. To receive CPE for attending today's session, you must sign in and out of the session using code words. The facilitator, me, will provide you the first code word at the start of the session and then provide you a checkout code word once the session is complete. You can log in with your computer, click the link that was provided to you in the email, fill out the information and enter the check-in and check-out words. If you registered for the meeting and checked the box that says you want the CPE credits, you should have received an email Monday night with the link. So that's an easy way for you to get it. But we also have, I have the link here. I'll post it in the chat window right before or right as I'm announcing the first keyword of the day. So I'd like to take just a minute to thank our consulting sponsor, Eide Bailly. Eide Bailly is NetSuite's 2020 North America Solution Partner Provider of the Year. It's our 4th year in a row to have that designation. We can help you with virtually anything NetSuite related. Complete implementations, and I believe we're over 600 and counting right now. One-off projects such as installing and configuring modules, on-demand support for small and large issues, ongoing consulting to optimize NetSuite and your business processes, subscription-based services offering dedicated consultants to work with you and your team. You can contact us by going to technologyconsulting.eidebailly.com. And today, Eide Bailly we have a $100 Amazon gift card giveaway. So I'm going to post a link in the chat window, and I'll do that here in just a moment. And you can go in and enter the drawing for that $100 Amazon gift card. So give me just a minute here. Then I'd also like to say thank you to our SuiteApp sponsor, Piango. And at this point, we are going to hear from our SuiteApp sponsor, and Mike Caniff will be talking to us today. So Mike, I'm going to go ahead and stop presenting and give you the presentership, and then you can take it away from here. And then remember, I'm going to post the link for the $100 Amazon gift card giveaway in just a moment as well. So I'll stop that.
Okay, thanks, Corey. Appreciate the intro.
Yes, sir. Hang on just a moment here. Okay, you should have it now.
All right. Yeah, let's see. I'm going to switch over and share, and I've got to get all of this out of the way. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay, so welcome to Piango. I appreciate everyone dropping in and being able to take a look at saved searches. That's actually an exciting topic, and I'll see if I can weave, excuse me, weave that in a little bit with our the Piango presentation today. Piango has been a SuiteApp partner or SuiteCloud Development Network partner since 2012. We focus on building applications on top of the NetSuite platform, so that means it's 100% integrated. From the database perspective, because we're using a set of custom records or linking in with existing transactions, so we're part of the NetSuite database. We use the same security model, and it will have the same user interface. So you don't need to retrain users if you're using a particular SuiteApp from Piango. We're going to focus today on budget control, but we also have a grants management product, a fund accounting product, and a travel authorization product. And we support customers from a wide variety of industries. We started with nonprofits, but we've branched out from there. So we have software companies, fintech companies, food services companies, and even waste management. So wide variety of companies all using budget control. We manage budgets throughout the world, variety of different currencies, variety or just a large amount of overall budgets that are being managed by Piango. So what do I mean by budgetary control? Now, most of you are probably using NetSuite budgeting for budget planning, or maybe you're using Oracle PBCS to do the budget planning. Where we fit in is to proactively control the spend of that budget throughout any transactions that are occurring in the system, primarily in your procure to pay process. So as soon as you create a requisition, we're doing a budget check, and then we'll track that all the way through to the vendor bill. But we also support vendor credits, journal entries, and expense reports. So even expense reports, if you're using NetSuite expense reporting, we can do a budget check as soon as the expense report is entered, and then again, that will move through the system until it's approved. We can segregate or separate into either CapEx or OpEx type of budget management. And we can control for a variety of different types of budget scenarios. This is important in a regulated industry such as a nonprofit, because you may be required by your donors to indicate that you are spending their particular money on exactly what they have requested you to spend on. Other industries are the same way, where you might need to determine which expenses are allowed and which are not, and our budget control can protect you against data entry errors and going over budget and out of compliance. As I mentioned, we can do several advanced budgeting options. We can either set it up in a tracking mode, which would warn users but allow the transactions to move forward, or a control mode, which provides kind of a hard stop. So that way you're ensured that no data can be entered if it's going to be going over budget. We can use the natural NetSuite hierarchical setup to say share budgets between departments, locations, or accounts, or really any segment. And so that way you can roll up to a parent level and then share that budget across all of the child level departments or child level accounts. We can then set up multiple types of budgets, so you could track at one level, say individual departments, and control at a higher level. And we can support standard segments, as I've mentioned, class, department, and location, as well as custom segments. And then every time a transaction occurs, we provide a complete audit trail. So I'll show you a couple of screenshots, and then we'll jump into the demo. But I wanted to highlight this.
I'm meeting, but that's fine. I can listen to that.
Oh,
what he
somebody's didn't end up on mute.
asking for that report, so I try to pull.
Mike, you might need to unmute yourself real quick. I just muted all.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, I think can you hear me all right now?
Yep, we got you.
All right, no problem. So what we're tracking in what you're looking at here is what's called a budget ledger. So it's similar to a general ledger, and we are tracking what is called the committed amount or a soft commitment against your budget, and that would be an unapproved purchase order, then an obligated or approved purchase order, and then finally you have your fully expensed invoices. This is a custom record, and what you're looking at is a saved search. So this is one of the things you guys are going to be looking at in a lot more detail over the next hour or so. So then within that, we also keep track of a full audit trail, which is another custom record where we can actually use this in NetSuite Analytics to do some interesting pivot tables based upon each individual transaction that is impacting your budget. And then because all of this data resides in NetSuite, it can be surfaced on your dashboard. You can create KPIs, bar charts, whatever else that you might need to do. So let me go ahead with the demo at this point. And we also have an Amazon gift card, so lots of opportunities for gift cards. I'll see if I can post that out in the chat here in a second. And make sure to visit us at LinkedIn or the Suite app or our regular website as well. So with that, let me jump over to show you the product in action real quick. And so what we're looking at here is this budget ledger, which we just showed in the PowerPoint. And currently I have this impact against my budget. So I've got $470 that are in a unapproved or committed status. And then as soon as I approve this, it'll move over to the obligated amount. And then finally it becomes expense. But from there, we can calculate remaining amounts, and this is a pessimistic view because it includes that soft commitment. If I was to reject the soft commitment, it then becomes more of an optimistic view of the available balance. So this gives the procurement buyer, as well as your budget owners, your FP&A team, visibility into the pipeline of transactions and procurement impacts that are going to be going through the system, so that you're not waiting until the end of the month or the end of the week to determine, oh, I'm over budget at that point. Let's see what happens when I create a transaction or update a transaction. So here I've got a standard purchase order in the system. And we do support advanced procurement as well with standalone requisitions, so the requisitions can impact. I'm going to update the quantity, but let's say if I made a mistake and instead of 6, I accidentally put in 600. So now my budget or my transaction amount is 45,000. When I press OK here, I am going to get a real-time alert by for the user to tell them that they are now over budget. They've exceeded that 6,600 that was remaining, and it tells them the specific account, department, in this case a project that I've set up, and that can be, again, like a CapEx related expense. Now I've defined the system in a warning mode, so it allows me to continue, but I've marked the transaction as over budget. We can leverage NetSuite workflow to route that to a special budget approver to approve or reject that particular transaction. Or I can set this up in control mode, so then I'd be stuck and I'd have to reduce my amount. And so I'll bring that back down to 6. So my 450 is within budget. So I've cleared my over budget flag. The other thing I'll do is approve it. Now, obviously, this would be routed through workflow, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to do a quick save. And as we're saving the transaction, we're doing a real-time update. So you'll see that my committed amount here has gone down for this particular project, and my obligated amount has gone up. I can drill down to my budget ledger, review the details on that, as well as see the complete audit trail of what has impacted this particular budget line, which transactions or which purchase orders, vendor bills, journal entries, etc. So I will wrap up here. I just wanted to give you a quick hint at what Piango Budgetary Control can do. Let me jump back to my slides here. And if there's any quick questions, I could probably entertain that one or two. Otherwise, I can we can connect afterwards. Thanks again for listening to Piango Budgetary Control, and enjoy the rest of the event today.
Thank you so much, Mike. And if anybody does have any follow-up questions, please feel free to post them in the chat window. And then, Mike, if you could please post your URL for your $50 Amazon gift card in the chat window, that'd be great. And I'll repost the Eide Bailly giveaway as well, so they're right next to each other. And we'll go ahead and move on from there. Thank you so much, Mike.
Okay, thanks again, and we'll do the drawing later on today.
All right.
Very good.
All right, so we're gonna have Gary come on here. And before I do that, I'm going to share my screen. So this is the first.
You can see my screen. And thank you very, very much for the invite to speak today. And Liz, thank you for the recommendation. It's nice to see so many familiar names on the participant list today. I worked with many of you in the past, and I appreciate you joining today to take a listen. As it mentions here on the screen, today we're going to be talking everything Saved Searches, A to Z. We're going to get into some very, very detailed information on how Saved Searches work, how to create Saved Searches, and things along those lines. As it mentions here on the screen, again, my name is Gary Kangas Jr. I'm a managing principal consultant for Brezatec. And today, our agenda is to talk all about Saved Searches. So what we're going to start with is those 6 or 5 things that we learned in school when we were writing: the what, the why, the when, the who, and the how. And then eventually we're going to talk about some examples of Saved Searches. And at the very end of this discussion, we'll have some additional time for some Q&A to actually talk, if you have any additional questions. But in the meantime, if you do have any questions, please feel free to type them into the chat window, and I'll pause occasionally to take a chance to review some of the questions that may be outstanding. All right, so I'm just going to jump right into it today. First of all, here's just a little slide so you can see my beautiful mug. Just a little background on myself so you understand where I'm coming from. I have more than 9 years of NetSuite implementation experience. I've been working with, I started with NetSuite in November of 2011, and I left there as a solution architect, and now I'm the managing principal consultant for Brezatec. A couple of other things I wanted to note about myself. So when I'm doing any implementations or looking at any Saved Searches or reporting, I'm actually coming to it from a controller or CFO perspective. I was a former controller, I was a former CFO, and as you can see down here in the bottom right corner, I'm also a recovering CPA. So I have a very solid background in accounting, and I like to look at things from an accounting perspective, but also from an operational and strategic perspective as well. And Saved Searches within NetSuite have become extremely useful in helping me implement this software for other clients. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide here. So what we're going to start with here is we're going to talk about the what. The what meaning, what is a Saved Search? What does it do? What are the capabilities of Saved Searches? So again, I don't like to read from slides typically, but this is a great slide here, and it actually describes exactly what a Saved Search is. So the NetSuite Help Center tells me that it's a reusable search definition that can have many advanced search filters and results display options, blah, 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 blah. What does that mean? So basically down below, and in plain English, Saved Search is a way to filter and to group information from NetSuite to easily provide data that can be utilized to assist in making good business decisions, no matter how big or how small the decision may be. So we can use Saved Searches to help us determine when we need to perform a task. We can use Saved Searches to update data within the system. We can use Saved Searches to provide financial operational results from a specific process. So Saved Searches are extremely, extremely powerful in the system. A Saved Search is also a way to organize and mine data using the Oracle PL SQL commands. And as you can see here, I've actually added a hyperlink to a website that I use on a very regular basis when I'm trying to determine how best to mine the data that I'm looking for. And this Tech on the Net provides a lot of the different PL SQL commands that NetSuite utilizes in the Save Search functionality. Also, a Save Search is a way to display data in a formatted fashion using the HTML code. Now, I'm a consultant, of course, but I am not very technical when it comes to coding. I can barely even spell HTML. I'm even surprised that it shows up on this screen properly. But this is actually a very easy way to use NetSuite, and you can use the tools that NetSuite has to your advantage to create that HTML code. So the next section that we're going to discuss is Save Searches and why. Why do we have Save Searches? What are the purpose of Save Searches inside the NetSuite operating system? So as you can see here, there's quite a few different reasons for it. So first of all, it's a way to easily export data. So you can run a Save Search, gather the data that you're looking for, export it to Excel, export it to PDF, or any other type of format that you'd prefer, and then use that data to make business decisions. We can also use NetSuite to alert customers, employees, and others when certain things happen or certain conditions occur within the system. We can also use Save Searches to highlight certain values that are based upon certain predefined criteria. I'll go through a number of these options also here in just a few more slides to give you some examples of the way we can use Save Searches. We can also use it to easily modify data on certain records. So we can run a Save Search and then use the NetSuite inline edit functionality to automatically edit certain values, or not automatically, to allow you to manually edit certain values on the software or on that particular record. We can also use it as custom lists of all record types. So you can see we have customers, we have sales orders, vendor bills, basically any record type that falls within NetSuite. We can provide you different views of that same record. We can also use it for custom sublists on most record types. And those of you that have implemented Suite Success in the recent past and are using products, you'll see it on the item 360 or the customer 360. Each and every one of those values below that particular tab are custom sublists that were created for that purpose. We can also use Save Searches for mass updates. And basically, which is and mass updates, for those of you that are not familiar with them, are a way to update certain field values based upon criteria that you develop in a Save Search. We can also use it for preferred search forms, meaning my preferred form that I want to utilize whenever I'm creating a brand new Save Search is my preferred search form, and we can use Save Searches to create those as well. Next is we can use Save Searches for custom fields. So we can calculate dynamic values using a Save Search and populate a certain field value on a record. As an example, and we'll see this in a little while, we can, I've had many customers request to have the total weight of a sales order populate on the sales order header so that we can see that value. We can actually use a Save Search to capture that data and present it to the user. We can also use Save Searches in key performance indicators, in key KPI meters, and also KPI graphs. We can use Save Searches in KPI scorecards. We can also use Save Searches for workflow conditions in the trigger, in the actions, in the transitions. All of these different areas we can actually utilize a Save Search to help aid in those automations. We can also use Save Searches to help create reminders for users to perform certain functions. We can create custom searches and then display them on dashboards. We can also utilize Save Searches in script parameters, meaning we use a Save Search to determine the results to provide to the script. And also we can use Save Searches in aiding in the automation of certain NetSuite tasks as well. So what we're going to do quickly is just take a look at a few of these records in a Save Search. And again, I have a lot of screenshots here that we'll be covering over the next, say, 30 minutes or so. And I'm going to get into a lot of detail on the the fields that we're looking at here within these searches. But here's a saved search that was created for a route planner, an address list that we're using. Now, if you wanted to, we could actually record, I'm sorry, forgive me, we can actually export the data from these searches into any of these formats. So the first list here that you see is our CSV tool. You can also export to an Excel tool. We can export to PDF. I didn't put my little arrow at the printer because pretty much everybody understands what a printer is. And then lastly, we have this button here, so you can email the results of this to a user that's defined within your system. So exporting data is a great useful tool for within the NetSuite system, or using saved searches for in the NetSuite system. The next thing we can use NetSuite for, or I apologize, a saved search for, is an email alert. So here's an example of an email alert that I created called a daily sales register. Of course, this company's not selling very much according to the dollar amounts here, but it was an email that was sent directly to me because I was a user that was defined on the email alert itself. And I'll talk about email alerts in my section here a little bit later when we get into the demonstration. But this is an email alert that was created and automatically sent at a certain time. I was up quite early that day. We can also use saved searches for lists with different views. So you can see here, I'm looking at a customer record in this situation, and notice all of the different views that are available here for us to take a look at the data. So we can create different saved search views so that different users can look at different information in different ways when needed. And this is a list of all of the different saved searches that have been created and used as a list view for this record. Now, highlighting is another great tool that NetSuite has available to it. This one here, I've actually highlighted records, and I didn't put it on this particular tab. I didn't give you a definition of what they mean, but in this situation, we're looking at tasks that are past due. So this was a customization I created for a customer a number of years ago, where they use the task functionality for collection purposes. So in this situation, what we've done here is we highlighted those tasks that are nearly past due, or in yellow. So there are ones that were due last week. Additionally, the red ones are ones from last year. So anything that was highlighted in red is something that you need to immediately act upon. Yellow means caution in this situation. So the tool in the saved search that NetSuite uses for highlighting has given us that ability to see exactly that data that we really need to focus on. By the way, I really like Fuzzy's Tacos, so we're going to talk about them a lot today. Again, another useful tool from within NetSuite is the inline editing functionality. So again, a saved search gives you the ability to edit some records, or at times other records. Now, one note about inline editing, not all saved searches are inline editable. That's hard to say. But all searches are not inline editable. Meaning, if you're looking at the line level of a transaction, as an example, we cannot inline edit those values. This only pertains to the header level of records in the system. But in order to turn on inline editing, you run your saved search, and this search will look familiar because I'll be using this later. But you'll turn on your inline editing function by clicking the inline edit button, and then any of the different categories that have a pencil, or I apologize, any of the different fields that have a pencil above it are fields that you can inline edit. So in this case here, I'm selecting the category in a drop-down, and I can change the category on each and every record as I need to. This is a great way to help update certain field values within the saved search itself. The next thing I'm going to look at is just sublists. Now, Margie's going to get into a lot more detail about sublists later, and I mentioned this just slightly earlier, but in this case here, all of these values or sublists are basically additional saved searches that were created in order to provide information about this assembly item that we're looking at. And you can see each one of these tabs is its own separate saved search, so it can provide you that detail. And this is an actual screenshot from an implementation I performed recently. So we used the item 360, which gives you certain certain items, and then we've added to those sublist records. And again, Margie's going to talk about this in more detail later, so I'll kind of skip right past this quickly. Now, also, as I mentioned, NetSuite gives you the ability to use a Save Search to create mass updates. In this particular situation, we use this update to update a field value on an item fulfillment record with the person that was actually the user that packed for that packing station for that day. So what we're doing with this is we looked at all orders, or I apologize, all item fulfillments that were created for that particular day or date range in this situation, and we're updating it automatically with the value of Larry so that we know that all of these orders were packed by Larry. So we could do some sort of evaluation later down the road to determine the packing accuracy that Larry has on each individual order. Now also, again, I mentioned earlier that we can use Save Searches for preferred search forms. In this case here, what we've done is created a transaction search form called SuiteRoll D3 OpenAR. Now, this is the particular preferred form for AR clerks from a list perspective, and also the form, also for administrators as well. So we can make certain search forms preferred for either all users or some users within a certain role in the system. What this does is it allows you the opportunity to have certain values automatically appear when you're creating a new search within the NetSuite system for that type of record. In this case here, this is a transaction record in the system. Also, I mentioned earlier that we can use Save Searches for custom fields within NetSuite to help calculate the values. So in this situation, what we've done in the custom field range is we've created a field called total quantity. We've made it available on the sales order. On the validation and defaulting tab, I've used a Save Search called item fulfillment search, and I don't know why because it's on a sales order. And I actually use the results of this search to populate a field on the record so that people can see the total quantity of this item on, or total quantity of items, I should say, on a sales order, or in this may even be a item fulfillment. Now, one note that I want to make sure that you're aware of is when you're performing this in the custom fields screen, or excuse me, when you're creating these custom fields, is make sure you uncheck the box that says store value. NetSuite will not use the store value, or forgive me, will not present the data to you if you do not unmark the store value checkbox when you're using a Save Search or any formula for that matter on a custom field. NetSuite can also be used, you can also use custom Save Searches on key performance indicators. So in this case here, I've created, here's a KPI indicator that I've created. I added some custom KPIs in addition to a standard KPI that's available on this order or on this screen. But anything that has this is denoted by this little C here tells me that it's a custom KPI. So this is a Save Search that I created in order to determine how many shipments for this particular packing station were created. And you can use any number of these Save Searches on a KPI up to the limit that's available. All right, the next thing we're going to look at where Save Searches are useful is in a KPI scorecard. Now on this KPI scorecard, again, I've noticed that I've added some custom KPIs. These custom KPIs are Save Searches that were developed within the system. So we have each one of these KPIs, and you can add up to 10 different KPIs, if I recall, on a KPI scorecard. And this one here is a KPI scorecard I called the SW Magical Ratios. So again, this is another useful location for Save Searches. The next thing we're going to look at are workflow conditions. So again, I'm just highlighting one, which is the workflow trigger itself at the workflow header, where we have a Save Search condition. So you can use a Save Search to determine which records we're going to act on in a workflow. Additionally, we can use these in the different states we can actually use in actions and in transition. So we can have a Save Search used in a workflow to help direct the workflow in the right direction based upon the results of a Save Search condition. Now, one thing I want to note, when you're using Save Searches as a Save Search condition, the trigger type here must be after record submit. And the reason behind that is the record must be stored within the system in order for a Save Search to be able to execute. So the trigger type must be after record submit, so the record is saved, then the Save Search can execute and then test for the condition that's out there. So make sure you make a note of this if you're into workflows, which, by the way, I geeked out when I saw NetSuite and I found out workflows were available, and I absolutely loved them and became just instantly fell in love with the capability of automating processes within the system. Also, we can use NetSuite for custom reminders. So what I want to note here, again, from a custom reminder perspective, is I've put this in the headline section, but this particular view, open orders past expected ship date, is a reminder that I've created in the system as a Save Search. So this Save Search is now available for me to use and remind people when orders are past due for shipment. Notice again that the highlighted C, so anything here that's highlighted with the C to the left is a custom Save Search that's been created and available for use in the reminders portlet. Next, we can take those Save Searches that we've been so diligently working on and create any sort of custom search on the dashboard. So I just wanted to highlight this to show you that on any dashboard, whichever it may be, and those of you that are familiar with NetSuite know that each one of these different tabs you have the potential of adding different dashboards to each one of those and adding custom searches to each one of these different tabs. Also, I wanted to note that NetSuite can use Save Search, in a script parameter. So in this particular case, I'm using this Save Search to trigger to give us the detail of which records to update as part of this effective dated pricing bundle that NetSuite has available. And in this case here, again, another Save Search is used to drive the results of that script. Okay, so the next question is, when do we use Save Searches? When are they really the option that you want to choose? Because there's so many different ways to gather data within NetSuite. These are just a few of the ways that I like when I'm trying to determine what the data or which mechanism to use, that I kind of think about when I create a Save Search. When you don't need a Save Search, when you don't need the data that's formatted, meaning I don't need it in a pretty indented function, and it doesn't need to be completely formatted 100% properly. All I need to do is get the raw data out of the search. And by the way, I put here well kind of at the end because there are ways that we can format some of this data on the screen so that you can provide, so you can visually see something a little different. But we don't necessarily need it formatted. And by the way, if you're using any custom code, for example, some HTML code when you're displaying the results within NetSuite, that HTML code does not follow through when you export it to a tool like CSV tool or an Excel file. When you want to display the data on a dashboard, and I say this because we can use report snapshots also to display on the dashboard, but in this situation, Save Searches are a much more useful tool when I want to actually display the results on my dashboard itself. When you need to send an alert to somebody. So if you want to tell somebody about something that's happening within the system, as an example, my daily sales register, or maybe somebody updated an item record and you need to notify the purchasing team or your engineering team that an item record has been updated. We can use that Save Search tool to alert those users. When you need to export it to an outside tool. Now, again, I say this half-heartedly because we can still do the same thing with reports to some extent, but this gives us the ability to export data to an Excel, to PDF, or whatever else it may be. When you don't have to format it, it's not necessary. When you only need summarized data, say, for example, you just want to see the count of the number of sales orders that were generated for the last week. And we don't need to see anything else. We can just run a quick save search that shows here's the count of the sales orders that we've performed for the last week or created for the last week, or how many invoices we've generated. If you don't know how to use a reporting tool, because to be honest with you, sometimes that reporting tool that NetSuite has is a little difficult. And now with the advent of the Suite Analytics tool as well, which is a little even more difficult to use, save searches will kind of be your friend, and they are very easy to use within the system. And in a few later slides, or a little later down the road, I'm actually going to go through how to create a save search itself and show you how simple it is. If you need to update a whole bunch of records at one time, you can use this mass update functionality. So we can use the save search criteria in a mass update to update those records that you need to target. When I have multiple conditions to meet for a workflow to trigger. So again, in a workflow, a suite flow, you have the ability to set conditions on the record so that you can say these are certain things that have to occur in order to perform this certain function. Well, if we use a workflow, or I apologize, a save search, we can actually make those even more complex to help trigger the workflows that are necessary, or the action that we're trying to perform within the workflow. Now, in NetSuite, we also have some permissions. So right now, we're going to talk about the who. Who has the save searches? Who can do save searches within the software? So in this situation, there are certain permissions that are required in order for someone to either create a save search or to publish a save search. So in NetSuite, in order to create a save search, you must have the perform search capability with a minimum of the create level access on that particular action. And you can find that particular item under the permissions, under the role setup, under permissions, lists, and then perform search is the permission you're trying to provide. Now also, in order for you to publish a save search, meaning other users outside of yourself can see the results of this save search or use this search for their benefit. And in order to publish a save search, you must have publish search permission with at least create level access. And you can again find that same permission under the role, under the permissions tab, lists sub-tab, and then you can find publish search as an option. And then lastly, in order to view the data within a certain record within NetSuite, the user must have view level access at a minimum for that record. Now, there are certain examples where we can allow users to access that, and I'll describe those in a little later slide. But basically, in the majority of the time, the user must have the minimum view level access on that record in order to create a save search for that record. So in this situation, as I've described here as an example, in order to, if a user doesn't have access to the employee records, they cannot create a save search against the employee record. This is a great permission tool within the system. And you can see down here at the bottom of the screen, I've actually highlighted the two different permissions that are available. So in this, the role that I'm looking at here, the perform search is set to full and publish search is set to create. All right, so now we're going to get into the meat of this. And this is a very detailed description as to how save searches are created within the system. There are quite a few slides here and a lot of detailed information. But those of you that have seen a save search know there's a lot of checkboxes and a lot of fields available on these items. So what we're going to look at is what each one of these fields means and how it works in the save search. Now, the first thing we need to look at, though, is how to create a save search. So in order to create it, again, if you have the proper permissions and you have the ability to create save searches in the system, no matter which role you're in, there'll be a reports tab at the top of your screen. And I like to call them tabs, by the way, because I've been around for a while. And originally, NetSuite had a tab. It looked like a file tab across the top. But in the reports tab, you'll hover over the reports tab, scroll down to the new search button and click on that new search. And what happens is you'll get a list that shows you all of the different records that are available to you to perform a save search against. So this one here, again, I screenshotted this from an administrator role from an account that I utilize regularly. and this gives me a list of all of the different records. And you can see there's some fun ones like test record and things like that. But this is every single record that is available within the system. If your permissions permit, you can see the only records you'll see here are those records that your permission permits for the role that you're using. Now here's your first save search screen. So this is how we create the search itself. And in this situation, the way to identify what type of search you're creating is here. It's always labeled in the top of the save search. It tells me that this is a transaction search. Don't worry about the title so much. Now, in the first field that you're going to create, and by the way, I recommend doing this every single time that you're creating a straight save search, is to give it a title immediately. Now, NetSuite will not allow you to create a search with the same title. So if you happen to try and save this search and it has this, there's another search with the same title, it will not allow you to save it. So you'll have to rename it. So you'll see in my accounts, you'll see a lot of them with a 2 at the end because I'm very generic. But first of all, give the search a title. Then secondly, if you're going to be using this for a script or something along those lines, you can use the ID field. This helps the script identify which record that we're looking at or which particular save search we're trying to find in the system. In most cases, though, I don't populate the ID. I just allow NetSuite to populate it with its own value. Now, the next field is this checkbox that says public. Now, depending upon the role that you're logged into, you may or may not have this particular button. What this checkbox does is it allows you to set this save search available to all users within the system. So if this box is marked, this save search is automatically available to anybody that has access to this record. If we check this next box that says available as a list view, in this particular checkbox, if it's marked, this particular save search will be available as a view in one of the list drop-downs that we looked at earlier. So if you remember in one of the earlier slides, I had a list view for the customer and project record, and it showed quite a few different lists. If this box is marked, it will show available in that particular list. So again, if I check this here and I'm going to look at a list of sales orders, this search will be available as a view in that particular record. If it's available as a dashboard view, this allows you to add this to your dashboards. So that custom search portlet that I showed you earlier, you can modify this dashboard view and make this available as a dashboard view. The next one is making it available as a sublist view. So that item 360 tab that I showed you on an earlier slide, this makes this particular search available to be presented on that tab. Or actually not on that tab because that was an item record, but this makes it available as a sublist view for any transaction record that's out there based upon this search itself. This checkbox, available for reminders, gives you the ability to add it to your reminders portlet. So if I create a save search and I want to add it to my reminders portlet, this makes it available there. And then lastly, this show in menu checkbox right here gives you the ability to show this in your save search menu as part of the reports drop-down that's available under your reports menu. Now, this use expressions is something that you can use when, and actually, let me take one step back. This use expressions is a great tool, but most NetSuite criteria filters are and operators. So when I'm looking at creating filters within the system, I may put in type equals sales order and mainline equals true. The operator here is automatically set to and if you don't use expressions. When you do check the use expressions box, NetSuite now allows you to use an or operator as well, so that you can make this an or condition. So it could be type equals sales order or type equals item fulfillment or type equals invoice. So you can have an or operator here is available from the expressions if you check this box. It also puts parentheses around these as well. The filters are those filters. So this is where you select the field that you're going to search based upon or what the criteria will be for this search. So again, in the example I used a moment ago, I want to look at sales orders, and I want to look at sales orders only. So here I would select in the filter type, and in the description I would put sales order, or main line is true, yes. And by the way, I'll describe some functions when we get into the description on certain fields that you want to try and use as a good practice when you're creating transaction searches. Here's a summary tab. Now, I'm not going to get into a lot about the summary tab today, but if you're summarizing your data and you want to make your criteria based upon summarized data, we can use this summary tab to help aid in that. An example would be if you only want to show, if you only want to return values where the sum of, or the count of sales orders is greater than 50, then we can use a summary to help return just those values. So you wouldn't see any records, or I apologize, any transactions where it's greater than 50, as an example. Now this is the next tab, and this is the results tab. And there's quite a bit of information here on this results tab. But in essence, the results tab itself is where you define what you want to see. Where do I want to see it on the screen? And what order do I want to see it in? And there's quite a few different fields here that are available for us to use. So note, first of all, the sort by. We can sort by up to 3 different criteria. So you can sort your data to make it very useful. If you want to order it by, in this case here, a step by order type, but a lot of times I'll use date as a sort by so I can see all the transactions for a certain date range in order. I also use document number so I can order it by the number of the transaction itself. And we can sort by up to 3 different criteria, both ascending and descending. Now the output type, this is really important because this is the way you display it on the screen. And there's 4 options here in this output type field. The first one is normal, which is basically just going to show it to you in a normal view. Another one is grid, where it shows you kind of a grid view, giving you lines in between the records. The next one is report view. So it looks kind of like a report. It gives you a title and shows the data in a report type format, even though it's not truly a report. And then lastly is graph. And so we can also give you a graphical view of this record, which is extremely useful when you're looking at historical data and trying to see trends in that historical data. And we'll take a look at some examples of these in a later demonstration. The next thing we're going to look at here is the consolidated exchange rate. And essentially, if you have currency enabled in your particular environment, which this one I did have multi-currency enabled, this allows you to determine what is the consolidated exchange rate that I'm going to use when determining returning an amount value. You have quite a few options in that list, and I don't think I've used it hardly at all ever in any safe searches that I've created. Show totals. So this is if you want to see the total of all of the records in those items. Now by totals, it's only looking at certain field types. So it's only going to look at integer values, decimal values, currency values, and total those for you at the bottom of the record. Now the next field that we're looking at is run unrestricted. Now remember earlier I mentioned from a permission perspective, NetSuite only allows you to view the records that your role allows you to view. Well, this is one exception. In the case, an administrator must perform this or create this safe search, or someone must create the safe search that has the proper permissions. But if you check this box unrestricted, it allows those users that don't have access to that record to see the results of this safe search. So again, if I don't have access to employee records, but an administrator creates a safe search that I can access, so I can see at least a listing of those employees that are active in the system, then I can actually run this search even though I don't have the ability to take a look at an employee record itself. It does provide you the ability to set the maximum number of results, and if you want to disallow the ability to drill into that record, then we can check the box to the far right, disallow drill down, and the user can't access that record. I use this quite a bit in implementations where they want their sales staff to be able to see the items in a certain view of items, but they don't want their sales staff to be able to see a lot of the data around the item record itself. So this gives us the ability to give them a search to add to their dashboard that they can see the items and the quantity available and such, but not see all kinds of other data that they really don't need to view. We can also make this your preferred search results, meaning this is the results that I want. This is the way I want to see my results every single time when I'm creating a safe search of this type. Now, the next one are the different records that are across the type. So this field that we have listed here is the field that you want to see. So in this situation, I'm going to see the order type. I want to see the asterisk. This asterisk by the way, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, this asterisk just means that it's a main line. So anytime you see an asterisk and you've used it in the Save Search results to the far left or somewhere within the record, it just indicates it's the header line of that sales transaction or that transaction itself. And any other fields that you want to add. And there's a plethora of fields that are available in most of the transaction records or most records altogether. And again, one other note here within a Save Search, one of the capabilities, you can actually access subrecords as well. So in the case of, again, we'll use an item as an example. In the case of an item record, we can look at the sublist, meaning I can look at the vendors, preferred vendors for these records, or the vendor sublist, or I can look at the bill of materials sublist if I wanted to and access those records depending upon the record type we're looking at. Now, one downfall is, though, you can only go about 2 levels deep within a Save Search. So if you're trying to link, and a great example that I run into quite regularly is I start from a transaction search and I need to go to an item and get data that's maybe related to a serial number that's on that item. It's not possible to get to that level of detail within some search. Well, I say not possible. It's not easy to get to that level of data within NetSuite if you need to show all of that data in one screen. So you have to, when you're creating a Save Search, you have to ensure that you're starting from the right record in order to access all of the data that's necessary. The next field is a summary type. So this is a field that you can use to summarize data or to provide certain, to give you data in a certain fashion. So there's quite a few different operations available under the summary type. The one that I see regularly is called group. So when you group by certain items, then you can summarize the other data below it. So a lot of times I will group by not order type, but type record, so sales order as an example, and then summarize the amount so I can see the total of all sales orders for that day or for a given period. There's also other functions like minimum, maximum, average, sum, and there's a few others, and I can't remember them off the top of my head, but those are the ones that are available. All right, function. So there are some different functions that are already built into the system, like rounding. So if you select this function list, you can round, you can look at age of certain records, you can do all kinds of other different functions that are predefined within the Save Search. But then the real power of the Save Search is in the formulas. And I'm going to show you some examples in a little while that describe these formulas in a lot of detail. Or give you some additional capabilities for formulas. But this is where the real power in my mind of Save Searches comes into play. This is where you use the Oracle PL SQL functions to provide the data in a fashion that you need to see it. When ordered by field, it gives you the ability to, when order it. These are the different custom labels that are available as well. So you can customize the label itself if you need to. And this is really useful when you're summarizing data, because those of us that have seen Save Searches, if you don't put a custom label, the label on that record will say sum of amount instead of amount. So this is where you can put in a custom label for that field, or in the case of a summary, like I mentioned a second ago, you can put in amount here. So when it summarizes it, it provides that that proper label for you as well. And that's what this is here. Now, the ones that are in between, by the way, are if you have multi-language enabled in your software, this gives you the ability to translate it to the language that you'd prefer a user to see. So, and you can set up to as many languages as you need to. So if you have users that are speaking English and then also Spanish and maybe German, you can put in different custom label translations there as well in those different languages. Now, this is the next tab, which is the highlighting. And again, there is a lot to talk about here on the highlighting, but basically, this is the condition that you're searching for. So if you're searching for orders that are greater, or excuse me, sales orders that are, not sales orders, invoices that are dated on or have a due date on or before the end of the year, then we can condition that and make give it a condition to say this is the condition I'm searching for, and then these are the features that we want to show you in that highlight. So in this case here, I can add an image to that record. I can also change the text color of that record. I can change the background color of that record if I want to. I can make it bold, and if this clicks, there we go. I can make it bold if I want to. Also, this is a description field that's used in the menu or the index to that record. So it gives you an idea as to what that field means or what that color is highlighting. And then this translation field, again, this has to do with multi-language capabilities. Now, the available filters tab, this is a very useful tool as well, especially when you're using this in a list record. So the available filters in NetSuite give you the ability to filter the record based upon values that you've defined down here. So in a lot of cases, we'll add, say, for example, date. So if I want to look at transactions within a certain date range, I can put a filter here, show that filter in the filter region, and that filter will now, now that Save Search, when I return the results, will give me the ability to enter in a date range. Again, if you show in filter region, and this is a option that you have on here, but when you show in filter region, what that does is it provides that visual cue that you can filter this record based upon that value. And then also if it's multi-select, so you may want to select multiple values rather than just a single value from that list. A great example of using this would be on that type field. Maybe I want to see invoices and cash sales in my results. So I can select invoice and cash sale in the dropdown, and then it will return the results of all of those in the multi-select list. Now, one note here, when creating Save Searches that are going to be used as a dynamic value to populate on a record, so remember how I showed you that custom fields that were available? A lot of times, the way you would operate that would be in this filter, you use the internal ID of the record we're on currently. And that internal ID will be the link to that record. I don't show that in the filter region typically, but that internal ID will allow you now to link that record to the Save Search, or the results of this search to that record, and then summarize that data in the appropriate fashion to return the result you're looking for. Again, this is just a label that you can change. So sometimes the label doesn't really mean much, or maybe you're linked to a sub-record that you're using as a filter. This label will help summarize that or give you a more concise view of that field. All right. Now this hide filter dropdowns, basically it gets rid of the dropdowns here in this list. So if you check this box for this Save Search, it will hide any of the filter dropdowns. And then lastly, this default text field filter allows you to select a number of options on how to filter that data, or to for text fields that are in the system that are used as a filter, it gives you multiple options. So you can put in there contains or starts with. So it helps aid in the search for the results that you're trying to find. Now, the audience itself is very important because this allows you the ability to provide this to a certain subset of folks. So if you remember back on the first screen here, we looked at that checkbox that said public. In that public checkbox, it makes it available to everybody. And if you check that box, by the way, this roles checkbox is automatically populated and everything is grayed out. So it means that this it's available to all roles. Now, if you don't check that public checkbox, now you can come in here and select which users or that you want to have access to this Save Search. So we can do it based upon role. You can do it based upon the department of that user. You can do it based upon the subsidiary that user has access to. You can use custom groups in the system. Now, and by the way, this custom groups is a great way to control the access to a search for a specific subset of users that may have the same role itself. And you don't want to have to go in and select that individual user in the setup. So an example would be maybe your entire sales department has access to this Save Search, and they're using the same role, but only sales reps in a certain region that you've defined need access to this Save Search. So this would be a great way to create a dynamic group called sales reps in the East region and assign that group specifically to this Save Search. Now this checkbox that this yellow arrow is pointing to, or this orange arrow, I think I'm not colorblind, this orange arrow is pointing to allows your audience to edit this record. So if you check this box, and again, it's made as a public or certain roles are given access to this, it allows your audience to edit the results of this Save Search and save them. I prefer not to check this box typically when I'm publishing this search to other users, but you can if you want your users to edit the results themselves. Otherwise, it forces them to create a new search with the results that they've modified. And again, all of these roles here that are highlighted, these are just ways to restrict the audience that's available. Now here, we can make this the preferred search, again, as we looked at earlier, for certain types of roles within the system. So if I wanted to, I can actually make this the preferred search form for all users. I can make it the preferred search results for all users if I wanted to. And that's what the header level of these do, is makes it preferred for all users that have access to this search. I can make it the preferred list view. I can make it the preferred dashboard view if I wanted to. I can make it the preferred sublist view for all these records. Additionally, I can do it by role. So each role I can make it the preferred as well in these situations. You can see there's selection criteria here available for each role that's in the system. Now, lastly, we're going to look at the email. This is the way inside of NetSuite to send alerts to users when certain things occur. So if we've checked this send email alerts when records are created, updated, when a record of this type using this search is created, NetSuite will send an alert to the users that are defined under the specific recipients or recipients from results. So we can use those values in those situations. If we select send emails according to schedule, it allows us to schedule emails to go out at a certain time. And when this box is checked, it also gives you the ability to summarize the schedule emails, so you can take a summary of everything and send it at a certain time, or send if no results. So if you remember that daily sales register that I created and showed earlier in one of the slides, that was a scheduled save search that ran and sent me that result at a certain time that day. And what it does is it's supposed to is supposed to summarize all of the data on a record by record basis and send that one summarized value to me in an email. Now, one cool thing within that message is you can send a custom message if it's a single result, or you can set the file as a CSV, an Excel file, or other formats that are available within the system.
Hey, Gary, I just wanted to mention real quick, there's a question in the chat window. Could you take a look at that real quick?
Absolutely. Let me open up that chat window here. And is the question, can you go back and assign an ID later, or is it set with the first save?
No.
And yes, you can. Nope.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's one at the very bottom. It's a new question that hasn't been answered. Can filters be relative to another filter in the save search?
No, they cannot. So filters are filtered only to that particular field only. So you can't make them filter on a filter. Now, there's some cool ways you can do it with custom records, but you can't do a filter. You can't filter based on the results of another filter.
Thanks for answering.
All right, now this is absolutely. Now there's this allows users to subscribe to it. So if you want users to be able to subscribe anywhere that you want to, so you can users can subscribe to this email if they want to, and they would be listed here as a result. If they select send on update, any records that are update, they'll send it to that user as well. Also, again, I just mentioned earlier that there's a customized message, so you can send out custom messages with the records. And this is really useful when you're doing a single record. So as soon as a record's created, you can have a message go to a user that says, hey, a new item record was created, Mr. Purchasing Manager, take a look and make sure it's done correctly. And it can link to that record itself so they can quickly and easily access it. And again, scheduling allows you to schedule the records. All right, so now this is a great time to take a pause. I've been talking for 51 minutes straight here, and I need a sip of coffee. So let's take about a 10-minute break, come back at 10:01 a.m., and then we will get on to the next section, which is actually looking at some saved searches that I've created and talking about the saved search and what the purpose of the search was in these situations. So we'll take a break here, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes.
Sounds good. Thanks, Gary.
All right, everybody, 10 minutes is up here, and it's time to get cranking again. Got another probably about 45 minutes worth of, hopefully 45 to 50 minutes worth of useful saved searches to look at here in this next little segment. All right, so we'll get cranking here to get and start this process here. All right, so now we're going to take a look at some examples of saved searches that I've created over the years, and just kind of give you useful tips and tools on saved search creation. So first of all, what we're going to, whoops, that's not where I wanted to go. Let's do this here. All right, so what we're going to start here is with an account that I've been using for quite some time, by the way. This account's nearly 10 years old, and I've got all kinds of garbage data in here. So if we see anything weird pop up or any crazy schemes pop up, it just happens to be that I've customized the heck out of this and probably broken many things. This is Kangasco. It's a crazy cool company, and again, I've been using it for almost 10 years now. And here's my home dashboard. Now, this home dashboard, in this case, I've kind of minimized everything so we can take a look at things on an individual basis. But in this case of the home dashboard, this is where we can present a lot of the saved searches. Now, on this dashboard, each and every one of these things, these little portlets that we're looking at, has something to do with a saved search that's behind it. So first of all, we're going to start by taking a look at this case value. So in this case here, this saved search, I apologize. This portlet is showing the results of cases where I'm the assigned user for that particular case. I've been assigned to provide the results of that case where the cases are not yet closed. In this case here, I've used a saved search to create a view called Gary's Case Detail. So in this, and this is where that list checkbox becomes useful. So if this is available on the list, it means I can actually use the saved search results behind this for the list itself. So I can select, for example, here I've created two of them, Gary's Case Status and Gary's Case Detail. So I can select either one of these and it changes the view of the records here and what I can see on the screen itself. Okay. Now I can also edit these searches directly from this record. So if I click on Edit View, it's going to take me to the search behind the scenes and give me the ability to edit the results of the search itself, or change the filters that are available in the search, or even change the search title translations if I want to. And I don't understand what this means at all. But in this situation, I now have fields that are available for me to modify. And notice that this one doesn't have the criteria option. Generally, when you're editing a saved search from a portlet, it doesn't show you that view. But you do have the ability to click this More Options button, and it will take you to the standard saved search view that we were looking at on those screens earlier. All right, I'm going to go ahead and cancel this and take me back. So this is basically the way to change the different views in a list. So I can look at all of these different options and change how I see the data that's here, and even potentially change the filters that are available to me on the top. All right, so that's a list search case, a list saved search that we've used in the system. Now, the next one I'm going to look at is a transaction saved search. And this saved search itself is returning it in a graphical format. So this is packing errors by agent. And what this actually, give you a little background on this search and why it was created, is I had a client that wanted to determine how many packing errors were, the rate of packing errors by packer for their sales orders that were, or their products that were going out the door. So what we wanted to do is provide a visual cue for the manager of the warehouse to determine, the effectiveness of these packers. So what we did is we created a custom field, or a couple of custom fields actually, on the item fulfillment record, one that showed the packer, the person that packed the order, and that was updated on a regular basis throughout the day as orders were being fulfilled. And in this case here, we're talking a client that was shipping up to 30,000 orders a day. Within NetSuite. But basically, they updated those records with the person that was assigned to the packing station they were at for that day. And then secondly, we added a checkbox on that record. So if a customer called in to their customer service center and said, hey guys, you guys put the wrong stuff in the box, that counted as a packing error. So that customer service agent had the ability to edit that field, a checkbox that was on the item fulfillment record, to determine if there was a packing error by that agent. And this is the graphical result of that. So if that happened, we noticed that Larry, Curly, and Mo here were the packing agents for that particular company. And that particular day, or this particular period, which is the date range that I've established in the filter, Larry had 0, Curly had 6, and Mo had 9. So it gave them a visual representation of what was going on. Now that search, that was basically the results of a search. So I'm going to open up this Safe Search so you can quickly take a look at it. So again, I called the search Packing Errors by Packing Agent. The output type here in this situation I selected as a graph. Now I also made sure that it was set as a dashboard view. And down here, I actually used some of the summary and group functions within, and a formula within the system to display the results. So what I did is I took from the criteria, I selected that the item fulfillment, the type was an item fulfillment, that it was in a shipped status, so they used the pick, pack, and ship functionality, that the main line is true, meaning I'm only looking at the header. I don't care about the lines that are on that record. And by the way, anytime you're using and this is just a little side note from a experience perspective, anytime you want to look at a transaction, you really want to try and define whether it's a main line or a line level that you're trying to perform the results on. If you select mainline as true, it only looks to the header of that record. If you select mainline as false, it looks to the line level of that record. So you're looking at the items on a sales order or items on an invoice or whatever it may be. And in this case here is items on an item fulfillment. But in this case, I'm looking at the header though. And then lastly, this packed by is that custom field that we created, and it's not empty. So that's what I'm doing with this search results here. Now, the results, though, what it does is it groups it by packer. So the person that packed by, it's grouping it, giving me the results of all fulfillments for packers where it's not blank, and summarizing a number. So I used a case when statement in this situation to show that when the packing error checkbox that was marked is equal to true, then I'm going to give you a 1. Otherwise, it's going to be a 0. And I'm going to summarize the results of that data. Now I'm going to look at this search here quickly in a normal view. So that you can see the results of it. And it's going to give me something that's not graphical, but it's going to show you the numbers here. Now, again, I mentioned earlier too, when you're labeling these items, notice it has sum of formula, numeric. So that's what it's doing, is it's putting that label. So if I had added a label in the summary, it would have said count of errors or something like that. But in this situation, I just changed the view from graph to normal, and now I can see the normal results with a total as well. Let me go back and change that back. And this is pretty simple to do in most cases, okay, and save it. So now it's going to be back in the graphical view. So this is a great way to start providing visual data to your users, especially those of you that are administrators or managers that need to provide usable data to the users of the software to make decisions. Now the next one that we're looking at here is called item availability by inventory location. Now what I'm trying to show you in this particular view is all of the different inventory items and the quantities that are available. Now, one thing I want you to note is that we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 records here on this particular view. Typically, in a view on your dashboard, you can only see seven different fields available. But if you expand it, it does give you more. So if you click the little expand button up in the top left corner, it'll show you more. So you can see I've added, there's additional fields here that are beyond this. Now, this particular view I created for a customer, and I actually used it as a sublist view for that customer, but it's also a great example to show you how to provide inventory value data to your users so they can see what's available and when do I kind of expect that item to appear. So in this case here, I have the item itself. I have the location that the item is in if you're using the multi-location features within the software. This is the quantity that's on hand. So here's how many units I have on hand in my warehouse right now. Here's what's been committed to orders that are outstanding as well. And here's what's been backordered or unbackordered. And now in this case, this customer wanted to see what are my backordered and committed so that they can use it to, kind of give a description to their customer how many they have available to ship today. regardless of the commitment status. Now, I also added quite a few different filters here as well. So you can see I can do this, I can filter based on a certain location. So if I just want to look at my distribution location, I've now just filtered down to see my distribution location. I can also look at just specific item types as well, or I can look at a specific inventory item if I wanted to. So let's select all, and I'm going to type in the word component right here in the name field, and NetSuite should return everything with just component in it, okay? Again, you can see that I'm very generic, and I use components for everything. So let's remove that. Now, what is the data behind this search? Because this is actually a lot of summarized data in the system. Let's edit this. First of all, I sorted based upon name and inventory location. I set the output type to grid, and I made sure that I'm showing the totals on this record. Now, down here, I've created some formulas behind the scenes for the results. So all of these are actual formulas. And the reason why I did this is in NetSuite, some of these field values, if there's no result in that field, returns a null value. And in order to use the null value in a formula, I have to make it a 0. So what these formulas are telling me is I'm taking the value in this location quantity backordered field. If the value is null, which is what the NVL talks about, and I'm going to add a 0 to that field instead. And the same thing with this other one, location quantity committed. That one natively has no value in it. It's a null value when the item when there's nothing there. It doesn't return a 0. So in order to use it for a math formula, I had to make it a 0. And that's what these formulas are doing all the way through the board. So this is where you can use the NetSuite Oracle PL SQL functionality to your benefit, to make sure that data is presented in the way you want it to be presented. So if I ran this search here from this particular view, save, and actually let's pull this search up here. Oh. So when I look at the results here of the item availability, you can see that some of these values will never have zeros because they're used in a math formula. But I didn't put it in these other fields because it wasn't worth it for them. They didn't care if they saw a 0 or a null in this situation. Okay. So that's the item inventory availability. Now, by the way, if the in the setup of these searches here, by the way, in the setup itself, you have the ability to determine what are the result sizes that I want to use in my custom search screens. In this situation, I just set my result size to 25. So that's what you would see on the screen immediately. But in our case here, you also have a drop down. So you can select from that drop down and look at the different inventory location records that we're looking at, since that's the sort where this arrow is. That's the sort that's being used on this search results. All right, we're going to move to the next save search that I've created here, and it's under the reminders portlet. So basically, you all have this ability to have a reminder on in your system. This reminders portlet, you can create custom save searches to remind you of certain things that occur. So in this situation, I show that I have 14 open orders past expected ship date. Well, again, this is a custom search in the system. And we can do some rules around these as well if I wanted to. I forgot about highlighting this. But in this case here, we can add some highlighting rules if we needed to. But in our case here, I'm just going to take a look at the setup. And this search itself is an open orders past expected ship date. And you can see anything, as I mentioned earlier, that has a C next to it is a custom search that's available, or is a custom search that's available for the reminder portlet itself. So that reminder box has been added. So let's open this search up here and take a look at how this was created. And again, this is another transaction search. Oops, if I could spell. So I'm going to edit the search. Made it view, I made it available for reminders, and down here I've added a lot of different criteria. And now the reason I'm highlighting this as well is because you can also utilize formulas in the criteria when you're creating a search. So note on this search I've added a formula here to say I only want to return values where it's 1, but I used a case when statement to determine when the record is a 1 versus a 0. So here I said when the quantity minus the quantity shipped received is not equal to 0, then I want you to return a 1, else I'm going to give you a 0. And this will only return records where there is a 1 been returned by this formula. Now, another couple things I want to note on this Safe Search that we've done is I've actually filtered it based upon a sales order and then the status. So this is one that's really useful when you're trying to determine, you know, open versus closed sales orders and things when you're trying to determine, you know, do I need to show this sales order in my list or not? And then when is the ship date? In this case here, I said the ship date is on or before today. So it's past due in this situation, past expected ship date. The main line, again, as I mentioned earlier, has to do with the fact that I want to see the line level, because this ship date field that I'm looking at is the expected ship date on the line, not the ship date that's at the header of the record. And here I'm also looking at, I don't want to return any lines that shows shipping results, meaning I don't care that UPS ground is the method that I'm using. I just want to see the items in the list. Additionally, this tax line, and for those of you that are creating anything that you want to see just the actual revenue that you can expect to generate on a sales order, tax line is revenue to you. So I also removed the tax line. So if there is sales tax that's assessed on the order itself, I don't want to see the results of that. So that's what these 3 criteria here mean together. It's false. I'm looking at the line level by using main. I don't want to return any shipping line, so I don't care if that it's UPS in the cost. And I don't care that I'm being taxed in El Paso County, Colorado. But I do want to return those orders that have a result of 1, where the quantity minus the quantity shipped and received, or shipped received, in this case here, quantity shipped, is not 0. And then the results, I'm grouping by several different fields, so you can see what I'm looking at here. Additionally, I have no filters that I've added to this record. So this is a great tool for creating those custom reminders that we may all need to see. Move this out of the way here so I can get to that button, close this up, and go back to my home screen. All right, so that covers the reminders themselves. Now, the next thing I'm going to look at is this customers and projects. Now, the reason I'm going to show you this is because NetSuite does give you the ability to format certain values if you need to. And in this case here, this customers and projects, you're going to see that anywhere parent company is noted, I've actually highlighted parent company in the result in yellow with red lettering in the background. So these particular values are basically some HTML that's been created behind the scenes, and you can see this throughout the entire record. That if I go to another field, or you'll see that it's highlighted all the way down. So anywhere parent company was there, I've highlighted parent company specifically, and just that value, because I didn't care about highlighting the whole record. Well, the question is, how did I do that? So let's edit this view. Now, NetSuite does give you the ability inside the formulas within the record to use HTML. And I used another formula here in this situation to say case when. So when the subsidiary was parent company, then I want you to format the value in that format that I used. Now, again, I mentioned earlier that I'm not very technical. I can barely code or barely spell HTML, but NetSuite has some really great options for helping you in this situation. So right here, in order to create this, all I did is use this email template within the system. And this is a great tool to use. And here I actually formatted it. So I just said maybe the font for this particular one is Courier New. The size is 28. I'm going to make the color of the text red, and the highlight yellow, I apologize, and then the color of the text red. And now I have this ability to type in whatever I'm going to use. So this is a test. Now, because I'm seeing this in HTML format, I can actually click this little source button here. It says div with looks like a $sign or something underneath it. I don't know what that means, but it's the source, and you can get to the HTML code behind it. So then I just basically copy this. This is a quick tool and a quick tip for doing these things that I'm trying to format. And then I go back to the record, and then I paste it in here and then populate the formula accordingly. So in this situation, that's all I did to create this value, and I replaced where it says this is a test with the actual field that I want highlighted inside the formula itself. All right, so this is a quick, easy way to format certain field values. All righty. And I love using this. I use it regularly throughout a lot of the implementations that I work on or with my clients, because people want to see certain field values to make them absolutely visible to that user without having to highlight the whole record. I have a guy right now I'm actually working with that just wanted to see one column when the value was greater than 4. He wanted me to highlight it, and that's exactly what we did using the HTML functionality. Now, again, I also want to mention that this is the customer list. So again, this is another list record inside the system. And notice again, all of these different searches that are available here behind the scenes. So I can see all of the different views that are available. So if I want to look at my customer view, customer marketing view, there's a customer marketing view with some highlighting. And I'm gonna go back to this particular view I had listed here. Alrighty, so that covers this particular view. And let me see if I see some highlights in here, and there's no questions in the box right now. And again, feel free again to add questions to the chat menu if you need to, and I'll try and stop in between each one of these pieces to answer any questions you may have. All right, so let's move on to the next piece here, which is the KPIs, or key performance indicators. So again, all of these KPIs here these are all custom saved searches that are behind the scenes for NetSuite. Now, some of these I just set to current because the restrictions on the save search that I use just show the current values. They don't show previous. But if you set it up properly with proper dollar amounts or proper quantities, then you can use both current and previous results to see what's happening. So in this case, all of these, except for the first line, are custom searches that were behind the scenes. So I have this, and by the way, this 2014 SW stands for SuiteWorld. I used to speak at SuiteWorld every year, give separate presentations similar to this one here on the functionality within the system. But then NetSuite stopped letting us go, and I was very sad. Anyhow, these are searches that I've created over the years to provide certain data. So here, I'm going to go to the setup of the KPIs. And all I did was I added these values in here to give you results. And I can do some comparisons if I needed to for some of these values. So in this case here, this total amount of approved POs. I'm going to pull that record up really quick and find the results of that. So you can see what's making these values up. Actually, let's not use total amount. Let's use total amount of approved POs. Oops. So we'll do total amount of approved POs. So I'm going to edit the search. I did give this one a name for some reason, and I don't know why. Maybe I used it in the script. But basically, again, I'm filtering it based upon the type as a purchase order, the status of the POs that I'm looking for, and I only want to look at the header of this record. So that's what the main line's representing here. Now, on this next tab, all I added was the amount, because that's the only result that I needed to see was the amount of that record, and I'm summarizing it. So I can now take this value and incorporate that into my save search. I apologize, into my key performance indicator based upon the period that I've selected in the KPI itself. And you can do this with any number of different items, any number of different records within the system, or save searches in the system. Additionally, when I'm doing my setup of my KPIs, I can add more if I needed to very easily. I can add more custom KPIs. So you can see that there's a slew of stuff that I've added over the years, plus been adding through the software. So for example, accrued purchases, I'm trying to remember what that one did, and save it. You can see there's my accrued purchases current. So those of you that are accountants and need to see the results of my accrued purchase or received but not invoiced or billed account, whichever one you're still using, then I can easily see the results of that search. So these are all of the POs that make up the balance, and here's the total balance of that record. And again, this is just a simple search that I've added that gives me certain filters on that record to return the results. So I had a certain date range because I didn't want to use it. There's the account, inventory received not billed, or now accrued purchases is what it's called. And then I summarize the results, grouped and summarized the results here. So grouped, created from, and the amount of this summary. So you can see how useful save searches can be even to the accounting team to determine the detail behind certain account values. And I know those of you are year-end corporations are busy right now working on getting this data to your auditors. So this will make this a useful tool. So let's go back to the dashboard. Okay, and that's the KPIs themselves. Now the KPI meters are the same thing. In a KPI meter, we're using the same type of results. So anything that was set up as a KPI in the system, I can now use those to give me the results of the KPI meter. So I can have these pretty little graphs on my screen. You know, those CEO graphs that we all like to see. All right, so now the next thing we're going to look at is mass updates. Now, I didn't add the mass update here, but in this system here, NetSuite does give you the ability to create mass updates. Now, I have a saved mass update that I've been using and I wanted to assign. So again, this is where I mentioned that we have a packer and they're at a certain packing station. So this mass update was designed to update that item fulfillment record based upon these certain values that are here. So I have this assign packer button, a save search, or I apologize, mass update created. But the results behind it is a save search. So again, here's the criteria in the mass update. So I'm looking at statuses. The status is an item fulfillment that is in a packed status. The location is any of these two locations, packing station 1 or distribution location, and that the packed by is none. Again, I have results here that I can see, but it's only for the purpose of viewing which records I'm going to update or have the potential to update in this search, using the search. In this case here, I have a mass update field, so I'm going to update the packed by field to Larry whenever this particular mass update runs. When I preview it, it's going to give me it's going to return the results based on the criteria of the search that I had developed, which I have none here, of course, right now. So because I updated them all inadvertently last night by running this and scheduling it. But basically, it will give you the results of all of these searches that are down here. And when you click Perform Update, it will go through and update each and every one of those records that were selected in that list. All right, let's change this a little bit and add a different. Nope, they're all there. So everything's been updated so far, so that's good. Well, it tells me that it works when you use the schedule functionality, and I did it every single day, and you can see it ran last night at 2:21 a.m. and it updated 13 records for me. All right, so let's go back to my home here, and that covers the mass updates. Now, the next thing I'm going to look at is my another search that I created called a daily sales register. So let's find this one here. Now, unfortunately, this account is set so that I can't send emails from it, but I'm going to give you the gist of what we're trying to accomplish here with this search. So this daily sales register, basically, again, I put in some filters on here. And I'm trying to send on a daily basis via email a list of all of the sales transactions that have occurred. I've made this public, this particular save search public, and I'm looking at any invoices, cash sales, credit memos, and cash refunds. I'm looking at the main line only because I only want to return the top. I don't care about the individual lines in this situation. And I'm looking at anything that's scheduled that was within today. So this search will run. It's going to look at only transactions that were created today and give me the results of that. So actually what I'm going to do is modify this just slightly and change this to this week. And very quickly and easily, I can select this week. Now, a couple of notes in here too, when you're using date filters. And again, if those of you that haven't seen this before, if I find a field that I want to have in my favorites, maybe I'm using it on a regular basis for this type of save search, I can click this little star to the left-hand side of it, and it puts it in my favorites list. Now, what happens is whenever I pull up this list or type in a value here, and I click in this field, I can actually see my favorites listed right here and find that very easily, rather than having to go through my entire available selectors list, which is several, a slew of values that are available. Okay, and this changes, by the way, based upon the setting in the date field. So if it's not after, I can select it here and notice that today value is not available, but these are the ones that are favorites for this type of date value. But I'm gonna go ahead and select within, and I'm gonna select this month. And, oops, sorry, I didn't select it. I accidentally unselected it. So let's do this week and set. And I'm gonna save and run the search. So now hopefully it should give me some sort of value. So here's my values for this week. So the 18th and the 19th were transactions. By the way, John Doe Company buys a lot of stuff from me. Just as a couple of notes here, again, I can export this. So I can click the Excel button right here. And there's my daily sales register in Excel format. And it opened in another screen, but here's the result. So it gave it to me in Excel format. I can also do the same thing with CSV, PDF, print, or email. So if I click the email button, it gives me the ability to send, tell me who I want to send these results to. Okay. And here's my daily sales register in report format. So this is where it comes with a title and things along those lines. So it makes it a little more presentable to a user. Now, the purpose of this search, though, was to look at the email functionality. And now notice here, I've checked all of these different little boxes that are here available. So what happens is if there's a new record created or updated in this system that shows up in this saved search, then NetSuite's going to automatically email this custom message from Gary Kangas, the overseer, with a transaction number and such in this record directly to the user. And it's going to include a record link. So it says view record at the bottom of the email. And I can also send the summarized results if it's a summary search within the results of this message. All right. Also, I've set it up to run on a schedule. So I've scheduled this to run starting on the 19th of the month at noon every single day with no end date. So this is a daily event that occurs. So every day at noon, it's going to send this email to the user, to whoever's assigned in the specific recipients or recipients from results. And in this situation, I have the field partner and some custom fields that I added in here as well. Now, if I check this send on update box, it's also going to send anytime I update these orders also, or these records. So if an invoice gets updated, a cash sale gets updated, a customer refund or a credit memo gets updated, it's going to also send a result to these same users. All right, so let's save and run. And at that point in time during the day, it sends those results. Now, this one here, it didn't it doesn't send because this account isn't allowing me to send at this point in time. All right, so that covers those particular search results. The next thing we're going to take a look at, I'm going to go back to my home. Close this one up, is this last search that I have here on the screen, which is called a route planner. Now, there's probably a lot of people that don't know that NetSuite is capable of this. But see, I've actually brought up a web page from another website. This is MapQuest. And this is actually a search that we created for another user or for one of our customers in the recent past so that they can actually optimize their route planning for the day. This is just kind of like what I consider the poor man's route planner, so you don't have to go and use a partner and go from there. So there is a question here I want to answer before I move into this search itself. Can a user entered value in the filter section be used in a results PL SQL? For example, a user filters on a date, and I would like to use the entered date as part of a case statement in the results formula. So no, it cannot be. You can't, and this is actually back to the question that someone had asked earlier. We can use multiple filters on a saved search. So you can filter and filter and filter. So the results of the original filter will affect the next filter, but the results in the filter dropdown do not change based upon that filter. And in this case here, we can't use or at least to my knowledge, you can't use a PL SQL formula as a filter option. Or at least I've never tried it. All right, so hopefully that answered the question. Now the next, so basically this particular route planner, this gives us the ability to plan a route for a customer for the day. And behind the scenes, there's two searches. This is one search that gives us the visual image of this graphic. And this is basically an iframe function within the search results itself. So I can now see the entire United States using MapQuest. And additionally, I have a second search, which is today's route tasks that are behind the scenes here. So these today's route tasks, I've actually created in a report view. And the way I instructed this user to use this was I actually, and by the way, as I mentioned earlier, I love Fuzzy's Tacos, so I'm doing the Tour de Fuzzy's today in Colorado Springs, which is, by the way, where I live. So let's copy these values, go back to the search itself, select the copy and paste field, and then I'm going to put in here, first of all, an address that I want to start with. So what I've done is I instructed them to say, put in your address here first, so we can tell your truck driver which way to go. So I'm going to put in an address of in here. And then I'm going to add the values from that search into this as well. And I'm going to get the directions. So what NetSuite does now, because we've been able to import this and have this value within NetSuite, I now can see right from within the interface, the user interface, the route that I need to take, or that truck driver needs to take. So it makes it a very, very easy way for your users to see what's going on. And notice it's going from Monument here, this address, showing me all of the data. It's taking me to route B, C, and then over to, zoom out a little bit, sorry. And over to this other one to give me a route. Now, by using some of the tools here, by the way, you have in the system, you can allow them to reorder the stops and things like that for you to give you the most efficient route to take for the day. So there must be an accident somewhere because normally it says right here, and this is a round trip. There it goes, perfect. So now it has all of the different stops that we have in the system. So this is a great tool, a more advanced option for getting data visible to your users to make those business decisions that we've looked at. Now, how did we do this? That's really, I'm sure, what is on everybody's mind is how did we create all of this stuff within the system? So let's first of all take a look at this route planner. So I'm going to edit the search or edit the task and look at the route planner. So first of all, I have some criteria here where I'm looking at, by the way, this is a saved task search. So it's looking at tasks in the system. And that's how we set this up for this user or this client. We have the status of the task being set to is in progress and not started, and where I am the assigned user of that record. I'm the owner of this record. So I created the task in this system to go through to do this delivery. On the results tab, this is where the power is. So again, I've used some HTML formatting plus iframes and some other functionality in the system in order to group and show me the results of this. So all this is doing is it's saying in this NetSuite application and these search results, I'm going to use a task, search ID 301, which is the daily task planner. It's a detail list. And then I'm going to bring in the value of the MapQuest search in an iframe. So it's showing me today's tasks in the top. It's a safe search. And then here's the route planner that I have available inside the iframe. Now, the next thing that's part of this safe search is, oops, wrong one, is this daily, today's route tasks. So this shows me the tasks that are available. So I'm going to edit the search, the address list. Again, it's showing me all of the tasks that are available and the results. So in this case here, the only results that I pulled from the task were the billing address of the customer that I'm going to be seeing that particular day. And that helped aid me in that process. So it gave me the ability to copy those values from the results and paste them into the task planner back down here and give me the results that I'm looking for or my planned route for the day. All right. Now, the last thing I want to take a look at is where a saved search was used in the creation of a workflow. And again, saved searches are powerful. Like I mentioned many, many times now, they're used across multiple pieces of the system. So let's see, let's move this little bar out of the way. And, oops. This is the one right here. So I use this safe search to help automate the billing process within an account. Now, I did this a long time ago before some of this scheduled billing operations function was available, but this was a way that I used to automatically invoice sales orders that were ready to bill or generate a sales, I apologize, a cash sale or an invoice, depending upon the situation, for invoices that were ready to bill. So this was the safe search that's behind the scenes. So essentially, when the workflow executes, it runs this search to determine, are there any records in the system that match this criteria? So I'm looking for sales orders that are pending billing, partially fulfilled, or sales orders that are pending billing. I'm only looking at the main line because I just want to return the record itself. I'm only looking at records that are within a certain subsidiary also. And any records that have an invoice, a sales order, within this month to date. So I could have also said anything on or before today, because we may have sales orders that are 4 months old that we just now invoiced. So I want to pick those up as well. So basically I would say date is on or before today typically. The results, they really don't matter in this situation. It's just a way for me when I'm creating the save search to verify that I'm pulling the accurate data. So the results here don't really make a difference for the workflow itself. Now where the real power of this is in the workflow. So this is the workflow that I've created to make this happen. Now notice that I have here a save search filter in the workflow record. So this is at the header. And what I've done is I set this as a scheduled workflow so that it runs on a certain schedule. So in this situation, and again, I don't have it initiating right now, but I have it scheduled to run every 30 minutes when it's active. And I'm using the results of that save search we just look at to determine what do I need to invoice or what do I need to bill. So if I run this search, these 4 records meet that criteria. So these are all save searches that are in a pending billing or partially fulfilled pending billing status. So the workflow itself uses those results to determine when do I need to invoice a record. Now what happens, just for the sake of this, what happens at this point in time is every 30 minutes this will run. It will run the save search. And then when it gets into the results of the workflow, it does what's called a transform record action. And based upon certain criteria, and again, I could have put a save search in here for this criteria if I wanted to, but I use the native NetSuite conditions field instead. Again, there's a save search condition available here. I make this into a cash sale. So if there's a payment method and the terms are empty, and we all know that that's how NetSuite operates from determining whether it's a cash sale and an invoice. So I use those criteria to say I'm going to create a cash sale for this record, or in the transform record action, again from the results of the initial search, if the terms is not empty, then I'm going to make it an invoice and populate the date with today. All right, so this is where the power of these searches can be. And again, a transform record action also has the ability to use the save search condition. Same thing with if I had created a new state and a transition in between those states. Let's do this, drag down, and a transition. I can also transition based upon a save search condition here as well. So the power of the save search is prevalent across the entire system. NetSuite has so much functionality where the save search itself is utilized and can provide that information that you need for business decisions. In the case of a workflow, it's providing the data so that you can automate a process itself. In the case of a reminder, it's telling somebody that they needed to perform an action, that certain things aren't happening, like I need to pay some bills or something along those lines. In the case of a mass update, it's telling me which records I need to update. So the save search is very prevalent in the entire system, and it can be used to help automate all of your processes and provide you all of that detail that your business needs. At this point in time, my voice is becoming raspy, and I need to stop and see if anybody has any questions.